So yeah, my name is Umar. I am a software developer currently. I studied computer science in university, and yeah, and James invited me here to talk a little bit about uh, my past and I guess my present, and then hopefully my future. So I'll start with my past. Um, so I was born and raised here in Scarborough, in the GTA. And I went to high school here as well. I went to Woburn Collegiate Institute in Scarborough. In high school, I got involved in a lot of clubs and courses. Uh, I got involved at Woburn. They have a programming club, so I got involved in that. I got involved in robotics. So I did a lot of work, not necessarily on the engineering side, but more on the business aspect of the robotics club, which is doing fundraising, marketing, design, that sort of thing. And that kind of led me into other areas that I was interested in, which was organizing our yearly yearbooks, bringing my kind of interest in design and graphic development and marketing, as well as in other programs in school. I also took some courses in computer science at that time, in math and physics, media arts. So you could say that most of my high school career was a balance between taking courses in the STEM disciplines, so computer science, math, physics. I didn't take biology. I kind of hated biology after taking it for 2 weeks. I dropped out. But those areas I was really interested in, chemistry as well. And then I also tried to balance that out with my love of art as well. So I took courses in media arts where I was, making videos and animations and artwork on computer or on paper and sort of thing. And also was involved in graphic design heavily. So that the intersection of those two things of computers and art, those are the two passions that I had. I actually started like programming in middle school and making websites. I learned that you could right click on any website, inspect element. Maybe some of you tried this, and edit any website. And that's how that opened the doors for me in understanding like how does the internet work, and how I can actually make changes to it and create and build off of this. And something that has always fascinated me about computers is the fact that I don't need a lot to do something, to make something. And, if you think about, something like carpentry or even engineering, where you're working with real materials, you need money or you need resources available to you in order to get started, in order to actually try these things. And that can be a barrier to trying these things, and a barrier to learning more. Another thing that drew me to computers and technology was that all I needed was a computer. And luckily, I was fortunate enough to have a family member who gave me a computer when I was younger, and I was able to experiment, learn, play with programs on the computer, and then explore the internet, and use that as a gateway to learn more things. I was going to get to this later, but that's probably one of the biggest lessons that I learned early on in high school and even middle school, was how to use technology to learn new things, and building this kind of feedback cycle where you're learning something new, you're using that information to find new things and learning more through that. So that was really like good for me, especially in school. It made school really easy because anytime that I was struggling with something or didn't know how I was going to solve a problem or an assignment, I would start to research and use Google and learn the tricks of how to use Google effectively, how to do research effectively. And a lot of it opened my eyes to understand how other people think about these topics, reading, figuring out the difference between fact and opinion, and understanding how much I can learn and how much there is to learn. So just coming back, I guess, to my journey. So yeah, I got into programming through web development, so editing websites. And I learned more about programming in high school. I think that was the courses that I took in high school, starting in grade 10, computer science, all the way to grade 12, those really cemented for me my interest in like programming as like a discipline, as like as a type of engineering, as a process, and learning about like different patterns and the different like ways that you can solve a problem and how to approach things in a more like step-by-step algorithmic, so to speak, way. And that really opened my eyes into understanding. Like before that, I was just like messing around. I didn't, sometimes things would break. I didn't understand why, but taking those courses in high school actually helped me move past those things. Even my Googling didn't really happen, or I didn't solve some of those problems until I actually was with peers in class and had a teacher in front of me to help me solve those problems. So yeah, that was this at this point in grade 12 in high school. I was kind of at a crossroads. I was really interested in computer science, and I was really interested in graphic design and art. In high school as well, I had gotten really into 3D art and computer graphics, making small movies on the computer and animations and pieces of art. I did this whole challenge with my friend where we made one piece of artwork every single day. We did that for almost 160 days, give or take, missing a couple of days in between. And that was really eye-opening in understanding, taught me a lesson of like perseverance. Like as I started, I was really excited about this idea of like, oh, I'm gonna make a new piece of artwork at the end of every single day. And at the end of it, I'm gonna have like 300 pieces of art. It's gonna be amazing portfolio that I can use to get into art school or something. So I started with a lot of enthusiasm, and then quickly realized how much work it really was. It was like, it's not an easy task to come up with a genuine new idea every single day and then execute on it. Because you can have a great idea, but trying to do the actual engineering side of it, or like the actual like work and the processes and the software to get what you want, was always like really defeating, because I'd have a grand vision, but my skills didn't match that, and I'd run into roadblocks. And eventually, you have a deadline, time is up, and you have to start for the next day. So that was really an eye-opening experience, and not something that was a part of school or anything. That was just something that I had saw online, that someone else was doing, and I was like, I want to do that as well. So yeah, that initial excitement really plummeted, and there were some days where we like skipped out days, or like we made like a bunch of artwork on one day and just like made tweaks to it, and then in order to save on time. But I learned that like it didn't feel as fulfilling. Trying to like churn out things it took the joy out of it for me in a lot of cases. So that whole process taught me a lot of lessons. And although like I didn't complete the entire whole year, I felt like I had grown significantly in just like 4 or 5 months, way more than I think I would have learned just if I hadn't done that. And they also gave me a great opportunity to collaborate deeply with one person and get to know them and work on a hard problem with them. You get a little bit of that in school with school projects, but with a school project, you're kind of forced to, submit something. This was on my own volition, so it was very interesting to not give up. After that, I was at this crossroads, and I decided that I wanted to continue to pursue computer science instead of art, because I knew that computer science, I could always continue to do art on my own time and combine that with computer science. And there was overlap in those enough overlap in those two disciplines that I felt that learning computer science is something that I couldn't have learned on my own, whereas art, I think I didn't necessarily need art school to do this. I was doing it on my own, even without any like self-learning. So I applied to university. I applied to a couple of different schools in Ontario and in Canada, so for computer science as well as software engineering. I wanted to get into Waterloo so badly. That was like my number one option, and I hadn't really thought about not getting in. So when I found out that I didn't get in, I was really like, it hurt me a lot. I was very down at that time. Fortunately, I was surrounded by family and friends. We're all very supportive. and were able to, give me information about, what opportunities there are, and like, you don't always get your way. Things don't always happen as, the way you expect them to. And so I ended up applying or getting into University of Toronto for computer science, and I went ahead with that. I did that in 2016. I did my first year, second year, and then during my second year, I got involved in, I wanted to get a job, and after second year, I felt like I had enough skills, and I wanted to get a job as a software developer. The challenge is I didn't have a lot of experience in that. So by, I guess, sheer luck, there was a table or a booth outside of one of my lecture rooms where an organization called Project Include was doing recruitment for teachers for their summer coding boot camps. So I applied and I got the job. And so I spent the summer of my second year, after my second year, working as a coding bootcamp instructor, teaching Python and web development to kids in middle school and elementary school. So they were learning about how computers work and how to write a program. It was an interesting experience. And simultaneously, I was also taking some courses to balance the time. Eventually, I went back to school after that summer and got a job at an internship at Top Hat for 16 months as part of the school's PEY program, or professional, I think it's called experience year or engineering year. It's a program that U of T offers as an internship. You can take for 12 to 16 months after your second or third year. And I did that as a software developer. And that was probably the biggest step forward in my career. It got me my first job, and it got me, the way I got the job was kind of interesting. I didn't actually apply like a traditional, there was not like a job posting that I applied to. The way I found out about the company and the job was through networking, actually. There was an event called Startup Open House where different startups in the GTA opened their doors, and I decided to go and see what's out there. One thing led to another, talked to recruiters, and that's how I got my foot in the door. So after completing that experience, went back to school, finished my 2 years in school. The pandemic hit, that kind of disrupted some things, but overall it was not so bad as a computer science student. A lot of my courses were online, and I was already used to that. And eventually got a return offer coming back to Top Hat, where I'm working now as a software developer. So I build software that students in university use. So I'm kind of building the software that I would have used in university. And I'm right now focused on building software for the STEM disciplines. So I'm having a direct impact on students who maybe some of you that might be trying out computer science or math, engineering, physics, chemistry, those sorts of subjects. So yeah, I hope that was kind of informative. That was like a speed run through my high school to where I'm now. I would say physics is a good course to understand the world and how things work, but it is quite challenging, I think, to balance both the math and physics, because physics, especially in high school, I think is a lot of math. So if you find that it's too tough, or if and there's not much, I guess, incentive that you think is going to carry over, then I would consider like which ones are really interesting to me, and I would continue to take those courses. In terms of actually like managing those courses, I think math and physics both require a lot of practice. It's not enough just to read over the material and try to absorb it that way. You do need to do practice. So getting in the habit of, not necessarily like spending hours and hours on studying, but like doing like an hour consistently, or like doing a small amount of practice consistently. Like say every day you spend half an hour solving 1 or 2 problems, like you make that a goal. That can help a lot. And the second thing I would say is doing a lot of studying and doing a lot of work is definitely, that's a good skill to have, and it will benefit you. But I think even more important is being smart about the way that you study. So that means if you have like, 15 problems to solve, that's to practice, if problem 1 and 2 and 3 are all very similar and you can breeze through them very easily, it doesn't really make sense to go through all of them or to do all the parts and do everything as you're going. Maybe at the end, if you're trying to study for a test, it can be helpful, but sometimes skipping every other question, or if the questions have sometimes, and I remember in our high school textbooks, they used to say like what category certain questions were. Like this is like a thinking question, this is like a critical, a communication type of question. I don't know if they still do that, but being more smart about the way that you practice and learn is definitely a skill that will save you time, but also let you, try other things at the same time. It's about time management at the end of the day. It's like you could study for forever, but I would encourage you, especially in high school, to get involved in other things, other interests that you have, if it's art or if it's law club or anything like that, or even sports. It's a good experience to have.
Okay, I have a question in the chat. It says, what high school courses do you recommend for engineering?
I think definitely if you're planning on getting to engineering, maths and I think physics and chemistry are necessary for a lot of programs. I think biology can be necessary. I'm not 100% sure, but those courses are very core to the engineering and STEM discipline. So definitely take those if they're offered at your school. Especially in grade 11 and 12, the calculus or what's the other one? Like functions course. Those are, I think, prerequisites for a lot of programs. Besides that, I would say if your school has, not every school has this, but if your school has special courses in either technical design or some schools out even have computer engineering courses or specific engineering disciplines like robotics, try those out as well. You don't necessarily have to take a course in those, but like if it's a club, you could join as well. Those can help open your eyes to more like what exactly the specific focuses that you might be interested in, because engineering is a very vast like field. Within engineering, there's like software engineering, chemical engineering, civil engineering. You could go in more into the architecture side. There could be industrial design. There's all sorts of sub disciplines, but I think math and physics and chemistry are at the core of that.
Another question here is kind of a little bit related, but maybe I'll just turn a little bit. There's also many courses in university in engineering as well, right? Once you get in, or which ones would you choose, or do you have a choice? Or computer science, because you do have some options. What's your recommendation there?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say something similar to what Daniel said, which is you're not necessarily locked in at any point, I think, except maybe in third and fourth years where you kind of really need to specialize with engineering. But I know plenty of people who have completed degrees in, say, chemical engineering, but went on to work in the software field, and vice versa. People who started in computer science, but maybe got interested in hardware, or were interested in health and combining that with biology and biotechnology. So I would say, try to keep an open mind, try out different courses, and you have a choice. There's some core courses you need to take every year, but you do have options with electives. So keep an open mind, try things out. If you enjoyed something in high school, continue to try it out in university as well. University undergraduate programs, a lot of them let you to do something like a major and a minor. So some people will do a major in, say, computer science, but then do a minor in, the arts or in languages or anything else that interests them as well. Because you're paying all this money, might as well also, get something out of it that you're interested in as well. If you have other multiple interests, if you're solely interested in engineering, that's great too. Like more power to you. But definitely do keep your doors open.
Another question here. I think it was asked before, but I maybe want to get your thoughts on this from because it's being asked at this point. Do you recommend us to join clubs throughout our high school years in order to get into a good university and program?
That's a tough question. I mean, I would definitely recommend doing a club if you have the bandwidth to do it, if you have the time and the interest, right? I think if you do something just to get into university, and you don't enjoy it, you're gonna hate it, and it's gonna make your involvement in that, less enjoyable. So I do recommend trying out some clubs that are in the area of interest that you're for applying to university, because they do look at that when in addition to your grades, they also look at your experiences outside of school as well, and that can be either in school clubs or it could be extracurricular outside of school as well. A lot of community centers, a lot of special interest groups like robotics. I know it's not something that's specifically done in schools. There's also smaller communities that run clubs as well. So take a look around your area, your neighborhood, if there's anything going on.
Hey, and related to marks, what's the minimum GPA you need to maintain in university?
I think it depends on the university and the program. I think if you get below like I don't know, but the exact number, something 2 or something less than 2 or something like that, 0.0, which I guess means like you're either like D or C or some near the threshold, then they might send you a letter or an email like and put you on like academic probation. That's like the worst case scenario. But I find that even if you're not like spending hours and hours studying, it's pretty hard to get into that situation unless you're really struggling. In which case, you should definitely reach out to other people, and having a friend group or like a classmate group that has good habits and good study techniques and stuff like that can help a lot. Even if you're not the best studier or the best note taker, having others to help you out and you help them out is probably my cheat code for university.
I'll rephrase this question. If somebody asked a question, but I'll rephrase it a little bit. Also with GPA, since you kind of mentioned it. What's your recommendation? Is it great to have a very high GPA but not too much work experience, or somebody who's kind of maybe going back to the minimum GPA but has an incredible GitHub repository with a whole bunch of stuff? What kind of extreme there? What's your perspective?
So my perspective is it depends on who's asking. If it's an employer and that employer is looking for just like software engineers, like entry-level positions or stuff like that, or even like mid-level positions, I think the GPA doesn't matter that much. If you have a really good set of experiences and projects, and a lot of people through that, a lot of people and that sort of thing. But I've seen the opposite, like the current company I'm working at as well. They asked for my marks, but I don't think it factored as much into the decision making as my experience, say, going to a hackathon or doing a project outside of school, and that experience speaks a lot for your ability to perform on the job.
And I have one last question. It's actually not related directly to either. Well, it's probably a little bit more to Daniel, but I'll just ask, and maybe in your context of IT. But the question is, what courses do you recommend for business and sales? But I can maybe rephrase it a little bit, which is, let's say in the IT field, right? There are business people there are sales people in IT. If you want to respond in that perspective, that's okay. But either way, I'll just hand it over to you.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I think in IT, there's always an aspect of business, and even as a software developer, even though I'm focused primarily on writing code and building software, there's always a part of my thought process that comes back to who is using this, who is the target audience, how are they using it? Like, what problem is it solving, and does it solve that problem effectively? So these are all of understanding the mind of a customer and how to sell to them, even directly or indirectly. These are all skills that come up because you can't just build software and just like hope that people will buy it or use it. That's not gonna pay the bills, and so to speak. So that from that perspective, definitely understanding some business terminology like return on investment, ROI, like a lot of acronyms, I think is a good idea to like, and I think it only comes really from experience. But there's a lot of acronyms that might come up that you should have a little bit of an understanding of. One other thing that I'll throw in there, I think Daniel alluded to this a little bit, was about entrepreneurship and like self-starting things. Especially in the technology field, there's a huge opportunity right now for entrepreneurship and startups. Some of you may have seen TV shows like Silicon Valley or I forget that other one, but like technology startups are a very hot thing right now, and it's definitely an avenue that most people don't consider coming out of high school. But it is an option available, even either in high school or even in university or after university. It's a pathway to, it's maybe a difficult pathway. It's a little bit harder. You have to have a lot of perseverance and discipline. But it is, I do say from my own experience, it is very rewarding. You don't necessarily have to start your own business. You could join like a business that's already on, like growing. Maybe it's with your friends that they already started something, you can join on. Even that is beneficial, because in the environment of a new company, in a startup, especially a technology startup, you get the opportunity to wear many hats and try different jobs, try different roles. And it's probably one of the fastest ways you can learn about what the different roles are and what the different jobs are in a business. Definitely at a smaller scale, but it's probably the fastest way you can learn those skills, and it will definitely help you get a job in the future.
Okay, so I'll ask, what's your future? What's your future hope? What's the next step?
Yeah, I think my next step, so currently I started just 6 months ago at this new job. So I'm going to see how it goes and work my way up a little bit. My long-term plan is entrepreneurship is something that's still, I'm involved in as I work at my full-time day job. I'm doing other projects in the evenings and weekends or whenever time I get time to do. So that's something that I think in the short term or semi long term, that's something I want to get more involved in. Eventually either starting my own company or joining a small company and seeing where that takes me. Yeah.